Alright, so Hypixel SkyBlock has been around for about 6 years now, and I like to do these sort of retrospective videos every year because I feel like you can see a lot of differences in the game every single year. My name is Derailious. Make sure to like and subscribe if you want to, and if you want to support the channel, use code RAIL in the Hypixel store for 5% off your order, and let's get started here. So the big thing I have to say about SkyBlock now, compared to the video I made last year, is that the game is a lot different than it was just a year ago. Obviously, we've gotten a lot of major content within that year. Since last year, around this time, we got the mining modernization update, we got the mountaintop, we got Year of the Seal, we got the Backwater Bayou, and also we got the foraging update as well as hunting, among a bunch of other smaller releases and changes. We've also consistently gotten more information about upcoming content, and the vibes, I would say, are a little bit better than I think they were around a year ago at this time. Also, as of the release of this video, I can't believe I forgot it, but we've also gotten Spider Slayer Tier 5, which you're probably watching right now. I think the content itself that we've gotten is significantly better and significantly more in terms of total quantity than we got in previous years. 2024 was a pretty rough year for the game in terms of content. 2023 was about as bad. I'm just happy that we're actually getting stuff fairly significantly again and in decent order. However, though, the game is kind of running into a different problem nowadays. And that problem is A, admin communication, but also it's just a new player problem. The game is not actively able to onboard players properly. It's having a lot of issues in terms of expansion, in terms of keeping up with player numbers. And I don't think that that problem has one direct solution, although I will present a few in this video. I think it's a problem that's sort of seen in a lot of MMOs, especially MMOs that rely on grinds to keep people entertained. When I think about SkyBlock more specifically, in terms of how it sets itself up, I feel like it does a particularly poor job of introducing a new player to the gameplay, to the environment, and to just the vibes and feeling of the game. I know I'm using the terminology of vibes a lot, but that's kind of the best way I can describe it. It doesn't really show you what you should be doing. It's very much a sandbox MMO in that regard. You're kind of allowed to just do whatever you want, and I actually think a little bit more guidance would be really good for new players. I've gone over this multiple times with things like, for example, Hina's chapters. I think a system like Hina's chapters should be implemented on pretty much every single island, and it should have a much more clear tutorial for players just getting into the game. But I also don't think it's just that. I think some of the grinds in SkyBlock are a little outrageous, and it's been about 2 or 3 years now since that design post where they were saying basically they didn't want to increase the amount of content in the game in terms of length. They wanted to keep the game overall the same in terms of how long it takes to complete. They wanted to add new stuff in and then compress stuff as needed. Since that dev blog or post or whatever, we've only gotten more and more to do, to the point where I would argue some of the grinds are just kind of ridiculous nowadays. Looking at things like crop milestones especially are particularly egregious, and there's a few other things relatively similar that I just feel like don't make a lot of sense. For example, mithril powder grinds just aren't that great. Those got nerfed last year, and it's worse than gemstone by a very significant margin. That makes no sense to me. The initial commission grind is just kind of frustrating for people, and I can go on and on listing these things that probably should be looked at or potentially fixed, because I think that that's the key to getting players to not only come back to the game, but to get new ones interested as well. I've also kind of gone over that concept as well, like getting new players into the game through events and things like that. We haven't gotten a Dante-like event at all since Dante, and obviously it was a massive undertaking for the admins, but hey, since the foraging update is now out, I think that that's something they could potentially pursue. I also wanted to briefly touch on the content that we've gotten. I didn't really go over it before this point, but the mountaintop was excellent. I really loved the finality of the Rift. I thought it really did a great job of expanding on the concepts of the Rift while not going too far away from what we got prior. The Backwater Bayou was a great update. I really like what it sets up for in the future. Seems like we're going to be getting more content akin to it in the future, which is really great to see. Hunting is a standout update. By itself, I think hunting is probably a top 5 update. just because of how much content it adds in a lot of different ways. A lot of emergent gameplay there where you're fusing things together, you're looking for specific attributes. It's very well set up. The first island of Galatea is also pretty incredible. Visually, it's very stunning in comparison to a lot of the other stuff that we've seen. It's also just a lot of fun. It also doesn't take a very long time to max out, which is something I can very much appreciate. It's kind of a weird situation for SkyBlock, right? Like a year ago, I think the problem that I explained the most was, we're getting a lot of information about updates and they're going back and forth on this, but we're not actually getting very many updates. And that's leading to a lot of player frustration and anger. And now, the 6 years on, we still have communication issues, but it's not really because of the content. If you look, for example, at Spider Slayer Tier 5, I think this is a great example. People like Spider Slayer Tier 5 generally. They actually wanted it to be on alpha even longer because they wanted more changes and improvements to it and bug fixes. It's just this kind of situation where, in a way, we're getting content almost too quickly now. It's extending the game, it's making the game run even longer, and players are now like, alright, well, we got a bunch of new stuff. Why don't we just take a step back and we actually make the old stuff more interesting and better to play and just overall more solid so we get more people into the game? Kind of a weird dichotomy there. Definitely wouldn't have expected that a year ago, but it is kind of the vibe and the viewpoint that I'm seeing more and more of. Another thing I want to note here is that admin communication has kind of been on and off still. This has always been an issue for the team. For example, at the end of the foraging update post, they said, in a week or two or in a little while or whatever, we're going to make a dev blog where we go over all of the different stuff we're going to be able to do in 1.20, resource packs and custom models and stuff like that, and that's nowhere to be seen. And a lot of posts, for example, once again, this happened with Terra Tier 5, which I thought was a great update, but had some issues, obviously. When they released the patch notes for this update, they kind of left a bunch of stuff out. And while that obviously isn't admin, I don't want to use the term incompetence because I feel like incompetence is a very heavy word. Sometimes that can just be a mistake that happens. Sometimes that can just be a level of miscommunication there, which I think is more likely. It reads to the community like admin incompetence, and that really erodes trust. And that's part of the reason why some people leave the game, Some people feel like, all right, the admins aren't listening. They're not doing things in the way that should be done. I'm not going to play anymore. And that was kind of the viewpoint that I saw a lot in the Mini-Clune interview, which feel free to check that out. I think you get a lot of insights by watching something like that. It's just sort of this weird pseudo-state where simultaneously, right, we have a lot of content and new players aren't able to get into it because they're completely overwhelmed. We have a lot of admin communication. We have a lot of updates planned on the docket for the next part of this year. But at the same time, we don't know what's going to happen to the current stuff that probably needs improvements, needs fixing. How are the admins going to keep players entertained a year from now, 2 years from now? Well, we have this massive roadmap, for the next 6 to 12 months. What happens beyond that? When are we getting something like 1.0? What does 1.0 look like? And I hope I don't sound like I'm being particularly annoying about this or trying to, attack the admins, because I actually think they've done a much better job this year than they did last year. It's just that these are very important, questions that are very fundamental to the future of the game, and we just kind of don't know the answer to them. We probably never will find the answer to them, at least not in their current forms. Hopefully we see some change in this regard, maybe a big blog post explaining the future of the game. That's something I would really love to see. Much more akin to like a 1.0 design thread than what we've been getting more recently. I really do think, though, the biggest thing that they can do to try to bring people back is to streamline the early game to hell and back. Like, Hina's chapters, drop that in the early game, get people, direct rewards, frankly, huge rewards. I think, frankly, you should be giving out things like grappling hooks and aspects of the end, very early on. Within a few hours of gameplay, you should just give that as a reward for quests. Get people something to be excited over. And obviously, you can disagree with that if you want to. But I really feel strongly that the early game needs to be compressed probably isn't the word, but streamlined definitely is. And the mid game probably needs to be compressed. You know, there's a few things that are particularly egregious and need to be looked at. I don't know. I don't want to ramble too much in a video like this. Last time I did a video like this, it was a very scripted video, and I kind of regretted doing it in that manner because I feel like I wasn't able to get my thoughts out properly. So I did the exact opposite here, where I just sort of rambled. And I feel like I'm able to talk more freely in that regard. I'm happy with the state of SkyBlock. I really am. I'm not like gonna leave anytime soon. You're gonna keep seeing SkyBlock news for at least another year or two at this rate. I'm now doing this full time for at least the next 6 to 12 months, so that's very exciting and scary. I'm now a college graduate and all that. Very much a year of paradoxes and dichotomies where we're getting more stuff and it feels rough, and I don't know. I don't want to come off as ungrateful. That's about all. You know, like all I could really say here is the foraging update dropped, guys. We should be so excited, and I am very happy about the foraging update's release. I think that it came out great, but you know, maybe I'm asking for too much. Let me know what you think. I would love to hear what you guys think about the game as well in the comments down below. Like, really leave your thoughts. I do read every single comment, even if I don't react directly to all of them. And I think on this video, I will be reacting to the vast majority. I don't know. I'm going to try to keep changing up and doing good with my content. I'm going to do more SkyBlock next and more general content to try to keep people entertained. Hopefully we get some big updates. We have a lot of good stuff coming soon. Atoll looks interesting. The Breach looks very interesting. I think another combat island would be great right about now as well, so that's going to be intriguing to see. My name's Derailious. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end, and look to the future, fellas. I'll see you then.